Cooper Rush with Daddle to his left, bunch formation right after motion. Rush in trouble. Strip sack. Who's got it? It's still loose. Texans pick it up. Here's Barnett on the run. 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown! Scoop, score, Derek Barnett.
Derek Barnett does it all. Causes the forced fumble. Waits for his teammate to force another fumble, then picks up the ball, goes into the end zone in a weird night in Dallas. They're all weird lately. Texans win 34-10. That was Mark Vandermeer of KILT. Little Andre Ware in the booth as well. A fittingly ugly, but kind of fun touchdown on a night that was just ugly. It wasn't fun at all for the Dallas Cowboys, but it was much needed for the Texans. And I'm joined by my friend, Nick Shook. I need you with me to make sense of this Monday night and make it entertaining for the listeners.
Well, I'll tell you this. I felt massive relief when Jalen Petrie flew in out of nowhere and knocked that ball out of Tyler Guyton's hands, freeing it for Derek Barnett to recover, scoop, and score for the decisive touchdown, because in that moment, I realized the Cowboys, who are not a good football team, and especially in this state, no longer have a chance of making this game interesting. It's not that I don't want to see an interesting game. It's that I don't want to see a very obviously fraudulent team have a chance through 4 quarters in a game like that. So good on the Texans for getting that job done. I got some concerns about them, though, Greg, and I'm sure we'll get into that here momentarily.
Yeah. No, let's just get into it. So that touchdown happened with about 12 minutes to go in the game. It made the game 27-10. You see the final score, 34-10. You think blowout. It was a blowout. Cooper Rush and this Cowboys offense, ultimately, they weren't going to win this game. You play it 10 times. I think they would have lost all 10 times.
Yeah.
That said, the yardage ends up being close in this game, and it was closer than it needed to be. In fact, it was a 1-score game before Mike McCarthy actually took points off the board after Brandon Aubrey hits a 64-yard field goal late in the third, early fourth, like when that drive was happening, and it was going to be 20-13. Instead, McCarthy, understandably, takes the points off the board. They try to score a touchdown. They don't go anywhere, and Cooper Rush tries to turn the ball over a couple times. The Texans finally stop them, but at that point, it's still a 1-score game, and I'm just thinking, and I'm texting with other people who love C.J. Stroud, and I'm watching this game, and I'm thinking, like, is this offense just not going to come together? Because for them to look so disjointed and C.J. Stroud to look so inconsistent on a night against the Cowboys where it just was all laid out for you, it does make you wonder if it might not just happen for this team, despite them being 7-4 and having a couple winnable games coming up.
Yeah, it's a perplexing situation because when you look at them based on record, you're like, oh, well, this is a good team. This is a team that's going to be contending and probably make the playoffs because they're in a bad division. But and when you watch the first play of the game, you see Nico Collins take a screen down the left side of the field for a touchdown. He gets wiped out by a penalty. But if you watch them over 4 quarters, you kind of get to understand who the Texans are, which is a bit of an enigma. Because at times, like in the first half against Detroit the week prior, they looked explosive. C.J. Stroud's dealing. He's got time to throw. He's got that quick release. He gets the ball out on time, on target. And then you go to this week, and it's like, where is that? Where is the rhythm of this offense? I'm done yearning for last year because I know it's not going to happen with this team. It starts with the offensive line. They have not protected him well all year. They didn't protect him well at times tonight. I mean, you let a free rusher through the A-gap on a third down where you just got to immediately dirt the ball and give up possession. That's concerning. Even with Micah Parsons on the field, he's not blowing up the game to the point where I'm sitting back and watching this line and thinking he's the problem. They're the problem. And I honestly think, and this is not a knock on Bobby Sloat because I think he's got a tough job right now, their offensive line issues, I think, have messed with his flow, like his ability to call plays in games. There's a 3rd and short situation where they hurry up and try to sneak a play off, right? And it's a quick pass to the sideline to Tank Dell. It's inaccurate, it's incomplete, and then they punt on the next play. If you're going to do that, are you going for it on 4th down? I know I'm getting in the weeds here a little bit, but it speaks to the disjointed nature of the Texans, who at times look broken offensively, and that's concerning considering they're probably going to win this division.
No, I think that was a great sequence to point out, Nick, because I'm with you. That was the sign of a totally discombobulated offense. They punt at that point, too. There was a couple times in this game, actually, where after failing on 4th down early in the game, where C.J. Stroud was intercepted, they decided to be aggressive. It was when they were up 7-0, and they go for it on a 4th and 2, 4th and 3. And Stroud just throws a curious pass where it looked like he had Nico Collins for the touchdown. Troy Aikman was dumbfounded. At first, I thought maybe it was a miscommunication. He thinks Nico Collins going to sit down, but it's pretty clearly, an in-breaking route. And
it's like
Nico certainly had the right read, because it was going to be a touchdown, and Stroud just misses him. And there were 3 or 4 throws like that in the night where I think of Stroud's accuracy as being what's most special about him. Mm-hmm. And he's just missing guys, and he's out of rhythm. I think that's the right word for it. And they're talking up their offensive line. This is the second straight week they've had the same group for the first time in a while, and they do think this is their best 5, and maybe they will get some cohesion. You mentioned that first play of the game. That was Laramie Tunsil, who that's the first play of the game. You've practiced that a million times, and he made it easy. He's a legal man downfield, and maybe they wouldn't have had the touchdown if he wasn't downfield. He did get the block on that play. We'll never know. Nico Collins certainly looks 100% healthy. That is a great sign, and he absolutely helped them out tonight. But Laramie Tunsil's like the worst great player in the NFL. You know what I mean? Like, he's an all-pro multiple times, but he screws up this offense so many times, and there's so many moments of this game where they're just disjointed. They're wide receivers and their tight ends. They can't block in the running game very well. And that's the difference between them and some of these other Shanahan, McVay tree type of teams. They draft and develop guys on the outside in terms of their wide receivers and tight ends who can block. The Texans can't. So I know we're sounding very negative, but I think it's because we see the potential of this team. I had this team in the conference championship before the season. Yeah. And I'm actually not out of hope yet. How about you? Only because I've watched enough NFL seasons to know sometimes if you just hang around and you have good players and the schedule's easy enough, sometimes it really can click at the very last second. Like, it's possible.
Yeah, well, that's the key, because at 7-4, you have a little bit of leeway. You're not in a good division, so you can kind of work out the kinks. I'm getting impatient because they've spent so much time not working out the kinks. But the idea of continuity with that offensive line and this potentially being their best 5, that does encourage me. I like to compare them to another team that I still have hope in that's in a much worse spot, and that's the Cincinnati Bengals, who we talked about last night, who have the inverse of their record at this point and need to basically win out to have a shot. The Texans aren't there. They have a little bit of breathing room to figure it out. But I also need them to prove it to me to a degree, because like you just talked about how they don't block the run well. Joe Mixon still goes for 109 yards on 20 carries and scores 3 rushing touchdowns. Like, he's been fantastic for most of the season, especially when he's been healthy. And yet that's overcoming some struggles up front. So the potential is there. It's just, you have these remaining 7 weeks to figure it out. Are you going to figure it out? Because the glimpses, we've seen it. We just need to see it over 4 quarters for me to truly believe. I had them in the Super Bowl, Greg. I know I was going out on a limb a little bit. I had Lions-Texans in the Super Bowl. I would love to see that. But right now, I don't quite believe
that's not happening. That's not happening.
No.
I mean, I'm saying I'm holding out hope. I just have seen too much of NFL football where it can just surprisingly come together at the end. For them, maybe that's winning a playoff game or two. You just never know. I'm feeling great, by the way. I went back to look at my predictions today, and man, I'm feeling great about those conference championships. I have Lions over Eagles. That's pretty good. And then I have Bills over Texans. Don't feel good about the Texans, but I do like my MVP, Josh, Bills winning the Super Bowl stack right now. I'm feeling good, so you never know. Let's go.
Okay. You're on a heater. This was a game that, look, like we talked about this last night. We thought it was going to be a blowout, right? This is a game where if you're actually of that caliber as the Texans, you prove it in a matchup like this. And they didn't. I mean, they did, but they didn't. So my pick's
their
not
defense
so
did. You know, they're not totally healthy up front. Will Anderson, they've been missing pieces there. Derek Stingley was fantastic covering CeeDee Lamb tonight, so it gives him some credit. 17 routes run on Stingley by Lamb, 2 catches, 19 yards, 3 pass breakups, and an interception. He was fantastic. I think he's been a little up and down this year, actually, for a guy who he thought is going to be a super duper star. Mixon's a top 5 running back right now. 22 touches for 153 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And you're right. It's not getting blocked up very well. I looked at the end of the game at the success rate because I just was wondering, he's running so well. There were a few runs where he got 3 yards and it should have been -2, or he got 7 and it should have been 1. And it makes sense when you look at his runs. He had a 40% success rate, which is solid. It's not amazing. It's not as good as the numbers would indicate. But he also got stuffed, which means a negative run or at the line of scrimmage 4 times, which that's a lot. Like, good running games don't have that happen. And you see that week after week with him. So that's disappointing. And that's the offensive line. And that's the part where it's hard to imagine them getting it fixed. It feels especially annoying tonight because they're going against a team that yes, they're totally different with Micah Parsons back. It's obvious, but they're still not a good run defense. Like, they should be able to run better against this team.
I will say, despite everything that we just said about the offensive line and their struggles throughout this season, I do give a big tip of the cap to Nick Caserio for jumping all over the idea that Joe Mixon's available for a 7th-round pick. I mean, what a steal. He doesn't have a long life ahead of him. He's approaching 30. He's going to be 29 in the summer. But, man, for the position they're in right now where they have money to spend and roster spots to occupy, what a move, man. That's paid off in droves for them.
Yeah, he's a Pro Bowler. I'm trying to think of AFC All-Pro. Well, there isn't such a thing, so I don't know what I'm talking about. All-Pro is gonna be tough for Mixon to pull off. Yeah. But Danielle Hunter in this game had 2 sacks, 9 pressures, 3 quick hits, and yes, it's all coming against the Cowboys, but it just points out who the players are. I do worry a little bit about Mixon because with the Bengals, his issue was he would always start off the season running so hard. I think no one runs harder on a per run basis, especially for a guy that's been in the league this long. But he just would wear down physically and not be healthy by the end of the year with the Bengals. He had a little injury early this season, so the key for him is just to stay healthy. And yeah, I mentioned Nico Collins. We haven't really done like the stats. He ends up 4 for 54, but he had 37 yards after the catch. Looked explosive. That was really important. Takedale made a couple plays. He makes more sense a little further down the order. John Mechie looks like he's kind of developing into a nice third receiver. He also had a nice tackle on a fake punt. That's how you know the Cowboys were desperate. They called a fake punt and threw it short of the sticks on their very first possession. Bones Fossil, going nuts. And Mike McCarthy did not look happy after the game. Yes, in the first 3 possessions alone, here's what happened. You had the touchdown that was almost 80 yards, called back by penalty. You had the C.J. Stroud interception. You had the fake punt disaster by the Texans. Like, that is how we started this game. I mean, by the Cowboys, rather.
We knew we were in for a weird night, and we got a weird night. Luckily it ended as it should have, with the Texans running away with it. I forgot Cooper
Rush threw an interception the very next drive as well. So
and Kalen Bullock dropped one that could have been another interception.
Should we talk a little bit about the Cowboys?
Yeah, we have to.
They have trailed all their home games by at least 17 points. They have been outscored in their 5 home games, most of those with Dak Prescott, by 118 points.
Oh,
that is the 3rd largest point differential in NFL history for your first 5 home games. So if you're a Cowboys season ticket holder that's gone to each one of those games, you have seen the 3rd worst performance by a home team in NFL history. I mean, we're talking about like the winless Browns. We're talking about like the Bucks with McKay. Like, we're talking about all the worst teams in history. This Cowboys team at home is as bad as any of them. I mean, they get a Kevontae Turpin 64-yard touchdown where he has the fastest time next-gen stats all season for a ball carrier. So you got one highlight in this game, but Cooper Rush is all over the place. He throws the ball 55 times, and he was sacked at least 5. So that's like 60 dropbacks in this game. And they got 7 more games, Shook.
I know, and that's what I wrote in the What We Learned, which you can check out on NFL.com. Where do they go from here? Like it's not. Yeah, he looked better than he did the week before because he was completely ineffective in his first start. Cooper Rush was, but you don't want to ever ask Cooper Rush to drop back to throw 55 or drop back 60 times in a game and think that you're going to win. There's no support in the running game. Even the game situation didn't really call for it until essentially the fourth quarter for them to be throwing that much. Yet that's where they found themselves. And also to add on to that stat that you listed, it gets even worse. They've trailed by 20 plus points at home in 6 straight games dating back to the Super Wild Card weekend loss to the Packers. That's where everything kind of fell apart. They had a quiet offseason, and now they're paying the price for it with 7 weeks left to go.
It's one of the most depressing seasons I can remember. There was a play when they were driving, and that was after they took the 3 points off the board, and they're trying to really make this a game. At that point, it's a 10-point game. You get a touchdown there. It's down to 3 late third, early fourth quarter. And on the fourth down play, Troy Aikman, just with disdain in his voice, looking at the route that CeeDee Lamb and the tight end was, it wasn't Ferguson, right? Because he left with a concussion. And he just said, I don't know what's going on over here. And knowing, like, just with the disdain, I don't know what's going on over here. Like, someone messed up. They should not be in the same place. And then here comes Mingo. He's actually doing a good job for his quarterback, but Cooper Rush just throws it over his head. And Troy Aikman, they were trying to put a good face on this game for a while, and by the end, he was just like, he was sick of that. His Cowboys are this embarrassing.
He even commented on the fact that the Cowboys fans had made a mass exodus out of AT&T Stadium by the fourth quarter. He goes, the amount of red in this stadium is kind of overwhelming. Like, wow, they trying to spin it like Texans fans traveled. No, Cowboys fans left because they knew their team didn't have a shot.
That's true, but the Texans fans were loud as hell in the first quarter too. When Stroud hit that touchdown, I should have mentioned after the penalty that called back the long touchdown, they still went down the field and had a great drive. It was the one drive all night where you thought, ooh, we're going to get the Texans. Like the perfect play calls. Mixon ends up getting a 45-yard touchdown. Hell, let's listen to one of the better moments of the night.
At the 45-yard line of Dallas, 1st and 10. Handoff Mixon, starts right, cuts back left, has room, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5, rock and roll, touchdown, Joe Mixon. 45-yard TD run. Monday Night Mixon.
Love that Monday Night Mixon call. And he ends up with 3 touchdowns on the night. So he lived up to that name. Yeah, the Cowboys are going to be in primetime. I was going to have this conversation later as part of the news, but let's have it now.
All right.
The Bengals and Cowboys are slated for a Week 16 primetime game, and they cannot be flexed. Do you know why they cannot be flexed?
Week 16, is it? It's not a Monday nighter, is it?
It is a Week 14 game. It's Troy and Joe again. It's in just a few weeks. They cannot flex it because it's the Simpsons watch-along game. I don't know if you've seen anything about this.
Oh, man. It was Toy Story last year. It's The Simpsons now.
It's The Simpsons now, and all the pre-production work that goes into that, including the voiceovers and everything, like, they're putting too much work into that. They're not doing that on the fly. They're doing that work right now. So we got to keep Bengals Cowboys in primetime on Monday Night Football.
Well, I think we'll all come away with the same thing, the same feeling, and quote Bart Simpson in that moment. Eat my shorts.
Oh, there you go. It's funny though, because ESPN, they wouldn't flex the Cowboys out anyways. They would be like, oh yeah, we can't do it because it's the Simpsons, but they don't want to do it anyways because it's the Cowboys, and they get the ratings at least for the first half of these games. I do think they'll get flexed out in Week 16. That's a Tampa Bay Dallas game, so I don't think that one is going to be on the schedule. But yes, that Bengals game will stay there. We'll talk a little bit more about flex in a second. Just a couple final thoughts of this game. Did you happen to see the commercial where it's a part of the Salute to Service initiative that they let servicemen play against Micah Parsons on Madden?
Yep.
And they put it up on the Jumbotron in Jerry World. And do you know where I'm going with this?
Go ahead.
Did you see the score of the game?
Yes, it was 50-7.
It was 50-7. Micah Parsons put it on this dude. You got to honor this man by putting on 50-7. And they tried to fake us out by showing Micah Parsons all upset about a play that happened. First of all, great job by Parsons that he was that upset that he even gave up points to this bum. If you're going to have a serviceman play Madden on the big board in Jerry World, let's get one that can compete a little bit.
All right.
Let's get someone that can compete.
Here. One, playing on a Jumbotron was a childhood dream of mine because I saw CeCe Sabathia do it at Progressive Field back in the day. So good on the servicemen for being able to do that with Micah Parsons. Two, that is the type of competitor Micah Parsons is, that he was upset that he gave up any points, and that's exactly why he put 50 on him. And 3A, this reminds me of when Cardale Jones, the former Ohio State quarterback, went to a hospital and played Madden against a kid and destroyed him even worse. And 3B, I played against the best Madden player on the planet for a story a couple of years ago. His name's Henry Leverett. He's won like 6 Madden Bowls. Nice kid. And he dominated me by about the same margin. So I know how that guy feels.
That's the best one in the world. And yeah, I hear you. Let's just pick a guy that can compete a little better. That's all. That's all.
Yeah.
I mean it was
he's
a night
serving
of,
our
it was a
country.
night
He
of
can't
no
be
mercy.
Practicing Madden.
It was a night of no mercy. Parsons like body slammed Robert Woods at the end of this game. Let's actually look at the tweet that the Texans sent out towards the Cowboys. And they said, "Look out below," with a big fat L on it, and then showed the piece of metal roof that fell from the Texans stadium. What a picture, by the way, that someone caught apparently, or they superimposed this. I don't even know.
They did.
Yes, but before the game, they opened the roof and a huge piece of metal fell. I'm almost surprised the Texans sent this out, not because they're putting that L on the Cowboys. This is a real rivalry. Props to those Texans fans. Enjoy this win, by the way. Your team won a combined 6 games over 2 seasons, and 2 years later, you got a couple of nimrods like us honking that they didn't look good enough while they're beating the Cowboys 34-10 in Dallas to get to a 7-4 record. You've been through it. Enjoy these moments.
Yeah.
Don't worry about us. But the fact that they're making fun of this, the Texans are making fun of the Cowboys for their building to fall apart. It's kind of funny, because if that metal had hit some dude or woman on the sideline, I don't know. We could have a decapitation or something. That thing looked scary.
I mean, it was floppy sheet metal. I don't think it had a lot of weight to it, but it was good on the Texans for taking 2 pieces of sheet metal, making it into an L. That's great social media work out of their team.
It's real. That's true. It wasn't the real thing, but that's excellent. Okay, you're saying floppy sheet metal wouldn't hurt you, but from that high up with the velocity, I guess it was kind of swinging back and forth with a leaf, but I don't know. Maybe I'm stupid. A football, if it hit you from that far up, would hurt like hell.
I mean, Gronk once caught a pass dropped out of a helicopter, and he was perfectly fine.
Well, yeah, if you're paying attention. But I'm just saying, if that's
true.
Hits you in the head. My last thought on this game is just, I'll remember the facial expressions in this game. C.J. Stroud's face after he threw that first interception, I already was worried that oh man, he's in his head a little bit, because after that, I don't know if he totally got out of it. He was so mad, so just frustrated already after that first interception. But the glare that CeeDee Lamb gave Cooper Rush after Cooper Rush threw behind him on a second down play was, I would say, withering. It was withering. The very next play, by the way, Cooper Rush throws a go ball that wasn't open at all to CeeDee Lamb, almost to apologize, and CeeDee Lamb has to have an offensive pass interference, and that knocks him out of field goal range. That is the type of night it was. But the Cowboys offensive players on the sideline, they're like, I can't believe we got to play with this dude for another few weeks, or a guy that's apparently worse than this dude, Trey Lance. What are you thinking if you're Trey Lance right now?
I mean, it's a humbling moment for him. I got a text tonight. It was like, is Trey Lance really that bad that he can't replace him? I'm like, yeah. You can talk about
find
his
out.
preseason
We will
numbers,
find
but
out. We will find out. He will be playing. Titans, Texans next week. Texans got to play better. I said this is a perfect schedule for them because they can beat up on the bad teams, get to 9-4, and then the tougher part of their schedule comes. They have Miami, they have Kansas City, they have some tough games down the stretch. But you got to play better. Even the Titans, I'm not counting that as a W necessarily.
No, I would agree. The Titans can be a frisky bunch. Their defense is not as good as I think people thought they were earlier in the season, but if Will Levis can play turnover-free football, it could get interesting. They made it interesting over the weekend, this past weekend, so we'll see. Texans do have to start to find a rhythm, though. Maybe this is the first step.
Yes, I hope so. And yeah, that post-bye schedule, if they can get past Titans, Jaguars the next 2 weeks, they'd be 9-4. At that point, about the 3 seed most likely in the AFC. And then you have a bye. Then you have Dolphins at Chiefs, Ravens, your next 3 games after that. So they are going to be a big part of the story. And I'm glad. I believe in you, CJ Stroud.